Hello, everybody. Hope everyone doing well. And this is Hafsa Islam. I'm here with a special episode of I am Ayyam-I-Ha, something that maybe many of us are not sure of what I'm going to talk about or what we are going to talk about. But today it's a special episode, and I hope you guys know what is Bahai is. But before I start the show, I'll come back to you with a short break.
आओ सब मिले কাজটা ছেড়ে রিল্যাক্স রেডিও শুনি आओ सब মিলে কাজটা ছেড়ে রিল্যাক্স রেডিও শুনি রিল্যাক্স রেডিওতে প্রতিদিন শোনা যায় বাংলার প্রতিধ্বনি রিল্যাক্স রেডিও শুনি রিল্যাক্স রেডিও শুনি
So, everyone, I'm back and I have two special guests today on my show. And let me introduce you to them. I have Caleb and I have Sarah. Hi, Caleb. Hi, Sarah. Did I pronounce your name right, Caleb, in first place?
Caleb, it's close enough.
Sorry to mispronounce your name. So, Caleb.
No worries.
Welcome to the show. And I know you guys are celebrating very special day coming up soon. But before we go to that, if you can introduce yourself to the audience and get to know you about a bit more. So, Caleb, if you can tell me something about yourself and how do you relate to the Baha'i community, if you can also include that.
Sure. So my name is Caleb Gilliland. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Edinburgh. I just started a month ago, so I actually haven't even been on campus. But what my connection to Tower Hamlets, where this broadcast is going out, is we moved to Edinburgh from Tower Hamlets a few months ago, and we lived in Tower Hamlets a bit over a year. And we really loved it there and had a great experience. Get to meet a lot of wonderful people. Both in general, I mean, the Baha'is and Tower Hamlets are quite great as well. And yeah, great experience overall. So my connection with the Baha'i faith is I was born a Christian, but I became a Baha'i when I was in high school. It's quite a long story. We could get into it later if you wish, but that's my connection. And in being Baha'i, I've lived around the world. You can probably tell by my accent that I'm originally from North America. I'm from the United States, around the city of Atlanta. And yeah, through different, parts of life, I've lived in Kazakhstan for a while. That's where I was doing a year of service, service to humanity from a Baha'i perspective. I've lived across America. I've lived in Europe a bit and now in the UK. So glad to be here.
Wow. And can I go to Sarah? Same question goes to you, Sarah. If you can introduce yourself and tell me how you got connected with Baha'i.
Hi, Hafsa. I'm Sara, and I am a fifth-year dental student at Barts in London, so at Queen Mary. So I've been living in Whitechapel for the past 4 years, going to uni there. And so, unlike Caleb, my parents are both Baha'is. So I was born into a Baha'i family. So I've been brought up that way. And at age 15 in the Baha'i faith, that's when what's called the age of maturity. So that's when you decide whether you want to commit to the Baha'i faith or not. So at 15, I decided to become a Baha'i and stay as a Baha'i.
Okay. If you can give me some information about Baha'i, what is Baha'i community? I mean, we have heard about many different religion groups. Are they religious group? Because only recently, about a year and a half ago, I found out about Baha'i. I didn't know what Baha'i was until I met Roche, and she was explaining to me. Then I had done a few shows on Baha'i community, but someone like me, I know it, but there are other people who are not sure of what Baha'i is. So if you would like to explain what is Baha'i and where did that come from? If I ask Caleb?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sure we could both talk about it at length if needed. Yeah, so the Baha'i community, it's the second most widespread religious community in the world. So we are definitely a religion.
Mhm.
You'll see that Baha'is are pretty spread out around the world, but they're not necessarily like a ton in one place. There's some places that have more than others. I think definitely South Asia has a pretty large amount of Baha'is,
Okay.
although obviously South Asia is so large that, if there are 6 million, 3 million Baha'is, still it's not that many in the scheme of South Asia. But definitely the faith is from Iran originally.
Okay.
It came out of Islam in the 1800s, and so in some ways we see Islam as our parent faith, much as Christianity sees Judaism as its parent faith.
Well, with Christianity and Islam, they have similarities, a lot of similarities, a lot of things that we believe similar. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm doing my PhD in it's in Islam and Christian Muslim relations.
Okay.
Partially because the Baha'i faith, as it sees itself as a continuation of those same revelations, both Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we kind of assume that they all work together, and that's not always the case when those religions are seeing each other in an interfaith context. So one nice thing about the faith is that because we believe that all the major religions of the world are all from God, then they should all be able to work together. They're all part of the same human story.
Do you want to add anything to that, Sarah?
Yeah, sure. So what Baha'is believe basically is that God sent down a series of divine messengers. So some you might be more familiar of, for example, Abraham, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, or Muhammad. And we believe that they all provided the same basic message, but that each message is a more updated version of the one before.
Okay.
And they all provide the same meaning. So it's like successive chapters of one book.
Okay. Quite interesting. You're born into a Baha'i family, but as Caleb, is it Caleb? Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong again.
No worries.
I do apologize. I'm not very good with pronunciation with names, especially. But with Caleb, you were born Christian, but why have you chose to follow Baha'i?
Yeah, so I definitely considered myself a evangelical Christian growing up. I lived in a place in America called the Bible Belt quite a lot, where people are quite religious, generally of the evangelical Christian variety. So not Catholic, not Orthodox, but Protestant, and the kind of Protestantism that they're kind of hardcore in how they believe about it. They believe that it's the truth and that truth should be spread. I mean, nicely, hopefully, but still. And so for me, it was more just a moment when I was 15, actually, that I just kind of ran into a book about the Baha'i faith at the local library. I was doing a research project on like religions of the world, on especially Islam. I was quite interested in Islam. And so I was reading the Quran, I was reading books about Islam. And then in my search, I ran into a book about the Baha'i faith. And long story, I checked out the book from the library. I didn't actually read it. At least more than a few pages. And then after a month, I had a dream. And in the dream, it seems like God was telling me to go and check out the book again and read it. And I read it all, and it made a lot of sense. I prayed about it a lot, and I felt like that's where God was leading me. So really short version of that story, but that's how I became a Baha'i from being a Christian.
In order to become Baha'i, what's the process? So say somebody wants to become a Baha'i, what do they need to do?
Right. So to be Baha'i is to believe that there is, just in the very basic, is that there's one God, that he's been present throughout all of human history, guiding humanity. And the way that he guides humanity is through these divine messengers. Basically, it's what Sarah was saying earlier. You have a lot of them that you've probably heard of. So Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. And we just believe that in that line of messengers, that the latest is Baha'u'llah. Again, 1800s in Persia. And the idea behind the faith was that sort of now is this modern time in humanity where we have kind of a choice to bring the world together just in ways that didn't exist previous to that. It's not that other religions such as Islam or Christianity couldn't have done it, But when they were brought to the world just wasn't connected in the way that it is now.
Okay.
So to become a Baha'i is to basically say that there is one God, that Baha'u'llah is the latest of the line of messengers that has come, and that you want to live a life that is in accordance with the Baha'i teachings.
So like with any other religion, say for instance, Islam, they have a Quran. For Christianity, they have a Bible. So, do you have for the Baha'i? Do they have any kind of books, holy books that people need to follow or read?
Yeah, sure. So, thank you, Sarah. Go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, in the Baha'i faith, there are many books that were written by either the Prophet himself, so Baha'u'llah, he was the founder of the Baha'i faith, or his son, Abdul Baha, or his grandson, Shoghi Effendi. And they wrote some prayers and some writings. So those are all collected in books. And as well as that, there is the Most Holy Book and the Book of Laws. So the Kitabi Akdas and the Kitabi Igan is what they're called.
Okay. And what type of laws they mention in that book?
So there's many different laws. I think with every religion, there's sort of a list of guidance that believers are supposed to follow. So some of those include how to live your life, how to be a good person, to follow the laws of God, and provide service to the community and service to others. And some of them are more sort of practical laws. For example, alcohol is banned in the Baha'i faith. So things like that as well.
That's interesting. In Islam, alcohol is banned as well. So it's kind of similar because it's originated from Islam, as you said. So yeah, maybe a similar concept they have. Each messenger of or the prophets that we believe in, they do bring in some information for us to, and they share, and then us to follow. That's what it is. And I'm sure Baha'u'llah, I would say, he probably tried to interpret his way of living someone's life. I have some comments. People did comment some. So let's look at it. We have Nur Absar. He wrote interesting show. Then we have Samad Chaudhry. He wrote in Bengali. So basically, he's saying greetings to all of us, and also he's watching us from Bangladesh. Then we have Tanzila Labon watching us from Toronto. She's saying greetings to all. Then we have Sama Chaudhry, very nice discussion. Roche answers, she wrote happy Ayyam-I-Ha. And Labono wants to know more about, please discuss about Bahai faith. So Labono, if you have a specific question, you can always call up. His number is 07852473473, and we can receive the call, and you can ask my panel any questions that you have. Sarah, although you are practicing for young, but is this something that you need to share for somebody who just thinking about it or wants to start, or maybe how you going to invite them? Some people say they force or they keep going on about it. In your concept, would you go and keep talking about Bahai, or would you just say, okay, I'll leave them to it with some information and then see how they go on about it? How would you approach people?
Yeah, so good question. Because the Baha'i faith isn't very well known, so growing up through school and things like that, people often hadn't heard of it. So I was often the only Baha'i that my friends knew or that people around me knew. So they'd often ask questions about, oh, what do you believe in? Who do you follow? That kind of thing. And I'd usually discuss with them the basic principles of the Baha'i faith. So there are quite a few, and they include things like unity of mankind, equality of men and women, equality of the races, removal of poverty and wealth. So those kinds of things. And I think most people can relate to those concepts, and it's very easy to discuss those things as well, and everyone has a view about them. And I think, almost anyone that I've spoken to agrees that those are good fundamental beliefs to have. So I think if somebody was interested in finding out more, I'd probably give them some books. There's quite a few books about the Baha'i faith. There's also the website bahai.org, which explains more about the Baha'i faith as well. And I would also invite them to some gatherings as well. So we often have gatherings where we say prayers, we socialize, we discuss these concepts or other things. So I'd probably invite them to those as well. And then from there, see if they're still interested, keep going with the discussions. And if not, then that's up to them. And then they can follow their own personal journeys.
Okay, thank you. Caleb, if you can answer this question. Someone wrote, what religion is it? And he's got another question. Same person asking same question, another question, say about calendar of Ayyam. So if you can answer those two questions.
Okay, yeah. So as far as what religion it is, I mean, the Baha'i faith is an independent world religion. Again, it's part of a community of religions in some sense, because they all spring from God. They're all part of sort of this ongoing story that, includes Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and the Baha'i faith. But it is a separate religion, just in the same way that Islam is separate from Christianity and Christianity is separate from Judaism. I think, yeah, that's an interesting question about the calendar. What is the calendar of Ayyam? So, like every religion throughout history basically has had a calendar. They come about in different ways, but that's no exception for the Baha'i faith. So we have a calendar called the Badi calendar. And Badi is interesting. It means new. It means sort of like created out of nothing, in the same way that God created the universe out of nothing. And the calendar is 365 days, but it's 19 months of 19 days each. And when you put those together, you get really close to 365, but not quite. There are usually 4 days left, and on a leap year, there are 5 days left of a year. And those days are called the days of Ha. Ayyam means days in Arabic. And Ha is kind of complicated as to what it means exactly, but it symbolizes God being above everything else. And so when you look at the 19 days of the calendar, they're all named after attributes of God. So like being kind, right? I can't remember all of them. They're in Arabic, so I'm still learning Arabic. I'm not quite there for my studies at university. But they are all these attributes of God, what God is like. But the days of Ha, so like Ayyam-I-Ha, it symbolizes God being above all of the attributes of himself. So in some ways it's saying like, a lot of times we want to just say kind. And then what does that mean that God is kind? Is that part of God, the kindness, or is that separate from God? It's really complicated. But the way that the faith looks at it, Islam has like this question too, as far as I understand. But the Baha'i faith just says it kind of outright, like God is above all of his attributes. Like all of his attributes are really important, but they're human ways of understanding the divine, and God himself is just beyond that. So that's where it kind of comes into the calendar. That's a really great question from your listener.
Thank you, Caleb. We are going to take a short break. So everyone stay tuned, and just taking a small short break, and we'll be back soon.
শুনেন শুনেন ভাই বোনেরা, শুনেন দিয়া মন, বাঙালির এখন হইব আসল পরিবর্তন। মনের মধ্যে আছে যত দুঃখ কষ্ট ভাই, দূর করি দিতে পারে আর চিন্তা নাই। খুশি মনের মানুষ যখন করে আলাপন, তোমার আমার দুঃখ ব্যথা করবে পলাতন। সকাল বিকাল 24 ঘন্টা শোনা যায় রে ভাই, এত বড় বাঙালির আর আড্ডা কোথাও নাই। তাই তো বলি, ডাউনলোড করো রিল্যাক্স রেডিও অ্যাপ, যেটাই থাকুক মোবাইল তোমার, সমস্যা নাই। Download Relax Radio on your mobile devices. Listen to Bengali's biggest conversation around the globe. Relax. Why read when you can listen?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Right. So let me read it out again. Equality of races is more timely now than ever before. How is this equality promoted in Baha'is faith? If I can ask Sarah that question.
Sure, yeah. So in the Baha'i faith, there are a lot of teachings about equality, and there's many quotes as well talking about how we should eliminate prejudice. So we all come from God, so we all come from the same stock, where no matter what race you are, what gender, everything like that. So we, from a young age, Baha'is are taught to view everyone as the same, and everyone is equal. So that's really it, to be honest. It's quite to me, it's quite a simple concept, to view everyone as the same and equal.
Do you want to add anything, Caleb, on this?
Yeah, sure, just a bit. I think what Sarah said is exactly right. We're kind of taught to look at everybody as equal, no matter their racial backgrounds, especially in this case of the question, or also the idea of like the equality of women and men as well. But it doesn't mean that we necessarily look at people as being identical to each other. We really value the diversity in humanity. So it's really great when people are from different places, from in some sense like different classes. The beauty of the faith is that you can get together with everybody, and it doesn't feel like the differences are like separating sort of differences. They just make the garden beautiful. Like Abdul Baha says that the more flowers, like if a garden was just one color of flower, it wouldn't be as beautiful as if the garden were many different kinds of flowers. And so all we want is the beautiful diversity of humanity, but just together, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, surely does. I've got another question for you. While you're at it, you can answer it. Is describe shortly biography of Baha'u'llah.
Sure. So Baha'u'llah was born in 1817, and into a Persian noble family in what's now Iran. And his father was a minister at the court of the Shah, so the king. And so, he was born actually into a life of privilege. In fact, like when his father passed away, Baha'u'llah was expected to basically take up the mantle to be the next minister. And I mean, frankly, given what people say about Baha'u'llah's personal qualities, it would have not been it would have been pretty normal for him to be prime minister probably at some point if he kept on that career path. But that's not what Baha'u'llah did. He followed, like he heard a message from God and he followed that, and he gave up really everything that he had. I mean, he lived in a very nice house. He had, a family that cared about him and also probably needed the income. And he gave up all that to follow what he saw was God's path. And that path involved being in prisons in really not good conditions. I mean, when we think of prisons now, we mostly think, well, they're kind of humane. People get fed on time. They're kind of clean. That was not the case for Baha'u'llah. People were beaten on their feet. They were sitting in the dark in chains for days, weeks. And then after that was over with, Baha'u'llah got exiled many times. So from Iran to what is now Iraq, it was back then it was part of the Ottoman Empire, then, to Constantinople, then eventually to the darkest bad prison city they could think of at the time, which was called Akka, which is located in what's now northern Israel. Although at the time it was the Ottoman Empire. And, just that was where you sent people to die. And he didn't die. He kept leading the community that he had built, and he wrote books, and it's changed people's lives from that point on and until now about how to bring the world together.
Interesting. Baha'u'llah, I mean, since I've been brought up, I never heard of Baha'i community, to be quite honest. Like I said, a year and a half ago, I only found out about Baha'i community, which I found it quite interesting because something that I haven't heard from, heard about, it just came along all in a sudden kind of thing. But there are people living with this faith and believing on it, in this faith, for many, many, many years. But like you said, in Tower Hamlets, there are quite a lot of people. So how many people do you think, or in London, how many people are celebrating as a Baha'i? What proportion of people are believing in Baha'i community?
What would you say, Sarah? I mean, you've lived there longer, I think, right?
Yeah, so I think in the UK, there's about 5,000 Baha'is, as far as I know. And there's quite a lot of those are in London. So in Tower Hamlets itself, I think there's probably around maybe 30 or 40. I'm not too sure of the exact numbers.
So it's still there.
Yeah.
I'm trying
Sorry,
to say.
what was that, Hafsa?
Still, they're fairly new. Your fairly new community has been. It's like forthcoming community building up on this faith. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still not known to many people, as you say. It's still spreading far and wide as we speak as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it also has to be said about London too, that a lot, like the Baha'i community has been in London for a long time, well over a century at this point. Abdul Baha himself actually visited London and even Edinburgh, where I am right now, which is kind of crazy. He made a sort of a trip from Israel to France, and on a different trip, I think like the UK, and then also America and Canada as well. One thing about London, though, is that the Baha'i community has been there a long time, but Baha'is, especially at different periods of our history, have moved away from places like London to bring the faith and to serve humanity in other parts of the world. So when you look at a map of like places that there are Baha'i communities, like it's almost everywhere other than like North Korea and a couple of other places. And a lot of that has to do with English and American Baha'is, among many others, that have moved out from places where they originally were more of them to places where there are fewer.
I've got another question for you. Mr. Samad is asking, proof Baha'u'llah is the messenger with acceptable evidence, please. He's trying to probably say that he wants evidence to say that he's the messenger, because where he's coming from, he's a Muslim, and we believe that the last messenger is the prophet that we believe in, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's what we know. So you're saying that another person, Baha'u'llah, is the last prophet. So that's in your faith. So He's asking, is there any evidence? Does it say anywhere that he's the last messenger?
Yeah, that's a good question. And definitely coming from an Islamic background, that's sort of the normal question that people would have. I mean, so the way that we see it is like, what is the proof of a messenger? We can even just ask that about Islam. What's the proof that Islam is true? And, different people would have different answers. The answer that I hear most often, not as somebody who's been a Muslim, but as somebody who's, studying it, professionally, hopefully, is that it's the Quran itself, right? It's like the Quran is a miracle. It's the word of God. And when you read it, I guess in some sense, like, you just kind of know in your heart that that's God's message. And that they're kind of, by extension, Muhammad is the prophet of Islam because he helped bring the Quran. Same for Christians, right? Christians are like, how do you know that Christianity is true? It's the person of Jesus and his word. So for us, like, I guess there's like kind of two issues there. But the first issue is like, how do we know that Baha'u'llah is the latest prophet? We wouldn't say final prophet because we believe that God continually reveals himself and that he never stops. So in the Quran, there's a part of the Quran that where it's kind of addressed to Jews, and it's saying, Jews, why do you say that the hands of God are tied up? Like, no, they're wide open, right? So saying that, like, Jews were complaining when Muhammad, talked to them, that there couldn't be a prophet after to some extent Moses, that kind of prophet, like Rasul, right? Mm-hmm. So, but Muhammad saying, no, I am one of those, and you can't say that God can stop revealing himself. It's not in the nature of God to stop. He's just infinitely generous, infinitely giving, and wants to reveal himself to humanity. There's always more. Like, God can always say more. And when it comes to these issues that are inside of Islam, like this idea of being still of the prophets, like that verse in the Quran, we would interpret quite differently. So there's a lot on there on the internet, and you can talk to Baha'is who might have an answer if they're from sort of an Islamic background. But for us, we see that the faith, like, that God just continually reveals himself. It's just not in his nature to stop. So whether the faith is true is the word of Baha'u'llah, because Baha'u'llah asked, like, to judge him by his actions and who he is, but also in his word. So when you have the revealed writings of Baha'u'llah, so anybody can pick them up and read them and pray about them and to see for themselves if they're true.
While you were saying, I was thinking that Baha'u'llah, is that where the name come from? Bahai, from Baha'u'llah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Ayyam-I-Ha, what's this event is all about, and how do you celebrate that? If I ask Sarah.
Sure, yeah. So Ayyam-I-Ha, as Caleb mentioned before, in the Bahai faith, the calendar is made up of 19 months, each of 19 days. So if you times 19 by 19, you get 361, which leaves 4 days or 5 on a leap year outside of the calendar. So those are known as intercalary days. And those days make up the festival of Ayyam-I-Ha. And that is just before the month of fasting. So we have 19 days of fasting. So in the days before the fast, so Ayyam-I-Ha, it's usually a festival of generosity, of giving, of love, friendship, also lots of eating as well, so we can stock up on food before we then have to give it up for 19 days.
Okay. In terms of fasting, like Muslims, they fast from dawn to dusk. Then Hindus, they do fast, but their fasting means you have to give up something, either drinking water or while they're cooking, giving up some kind of onion or things like that. That means they're fasting. But in Ayyam-I-Ha, how do you fast? What's your actual ritual way of fasting?
Yeah, so we don't fast in Ayyam-I-Ha. That's just the festival before the month of fasting. Okay. Yeah, and so then during the fast, as you said, it's from sunrise till sunset, and it's abstinence from any food and drink. But it's also a time for reflection as well, personal reflection and development, working on ourselves, trying to improve ourselves as well.
Okay. It's like in Islam.
Exactly, yeah.
In the same way. That's the whole reason why we need to fast as well, just to see ourselves. which is a similar concept that you
Yeah,
follow.
exactly. It's very similar to Ramadan. Yeah.
Yeah. And when do you start fasting?
So we will be starting fasting on the 1st of March. So Monday.
Okay, from next Monday, practically you'll be fasting. And you fast for 19 days.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And in during the fasting time, is there anything else you need to do? Like with us, we have to do our 5 time prayers. We can read Quran. We can be more generous to the poor people. We have to, think about needy things like that. In terms of your Baha'i religion, um, why do you need to fast, and what is the purpose of it? If I can ask Caleb that. Caleb can answer this one.
Yeah, sure. So fasting, it's much the same as it is in many religions. So like you mentioned, Ramadan in Islam, in some ways it's quite similar indeed to Ramadan. Christians have historically fasted. They don't always do it as much these days, at least not across the board. But in early Christianity, around the time of Jesus, the next few centuries after him, Christians often did the same sort of fast 2 days a week. Depending on who you ask, it was like Thursday and Saturday or Friday and Wednesday or something like this. But for us, it's this idea of a yearly renewal, and maybe just in our personal relationship with God, or also in some sense, like thinking about the needs of our community as well. So I can just say for me, it's difficult, as somebody, burns a lot of energy, you get up in the morning and then you can't eat or drink. And I think the not drinking is always harder for me. And, ideally it's this idea in modern society, like, normally you can just have anything you want. Like if you want something in Amazon, it can get there the same day. If you want to have anything to eat, we have so many conveniences at our disposal. You can go down the street and then you can go into a shop and buy what you want. But this is sort of God saying, take a step back. What does it feel like to not be able to do that? To not have all of your desires met basically instantaneously. And it's good for us to sit there and kind of suffer through it a little bit, because it makes us empathize with people who don't have as much.
Exactly.
It makes us think about whether they're in our own community or around the world. And so in some sense, it's a kind of solidarity. And, it's one of those other things that, because this idea of fasting encompasses so much, like there are a lot of different ways and angles that people can look at it as being beneficial. But it definitely, at least for me, it definitely keeps me humble, and it keeps me more detached to the things that are important in life.
Of course. By fasting, it does make you feel humble, and you think about those people who are more needy than you are, and they cannot afford to have food, and cannot afford to the things that luxury that we have. So yeah, it does make you wonder, and you think about them a lot, which is really good. Rocha wrote, "Can we hear a song from music from Sarah?" We'll come to that. We'll have a last part. We'll have some fun activities. But before that, let us discuss Rochaba. We'll come to that. There's another question that's been asked by Samad. Which religion can be the first of, if research the information from history properly? Your opinion.
Wait, if I understand, it's asking what's the earliest religion that
Yeah.
exists? Yeah, I guess I'll take this one. If Sarah has any thoughts, you feel free to jump in at any point. Basically, it's this idea, like, in some sense, like the first prophet that's mentioned in the Bahai writings, just the same as Islam or the Bible, is that it's Adam. But the idea of the Bahai faith is that God has been with humanity forever. And so, if you say, some people look at creation as happening with Adam 6,000 years ago, maybe that's the way I actually grew up, as an evangelical Christian, this idea that, like, the beginning of time for humans wasn't that long ago. Then there are people that believe that God used evolution, like, as his tool to create the universe, and then you eventually get humanity out of that. And I think increasingly that's the position that people of many faiths have adopted. So the way that I understand it as a Baha'i is that when God created the world, like, whatever we look like as humans, like whether they look like us now or whatever the past was in that God sent messengers to us in whatever state it was and led us up to where we are now. so that wherever we were in our history or prehistory or existence, God was always with humanity leading us. And so in some sense, like if you're asking like who the first messenger was, like in all of that, I don't know. I mean, that's way beyond our ability to know in that case. But again, the first one that's mentioned, we would say is Adam.
We've got a comment from Roger. She wrote, congratulations, you are doing well.
Thank you, Roche.
I was going to put this one. Sumaya Sultana, happy Ayyam-I-Ha. Right, happy Ayyam-I-Ha. What is the significance of celebrating that? I know you said it, but is it just one day like in Islam? We celebrate 2 Eid. But in Bahai community, how many days celebrate? How many occasions that you have?
So Ayyam-I-Ha is 4 days, I think. Yeah, 4 days this year. So the festival goes on for those days.
Every year changes.
Well, it's 4 days most years, and then 5 days on a leap year because there's one extra day. Yeah, exactly. And so the festivities sort of spread for that whole time, and it involves giving other people gifts and share. Usually, when it's not a pandemic, gathering, sharing food together, sharing stories, sharing prayers, things like that, and music. Basically, just fun celebrations. And then, so as I said, we then have the period of fasting. And then when the fasting ends, we have the new year, so Nowruz, which is the first day of spring as well. So it falls with the spring equinox. So Nowruz, I guess, is our equivalent of Eid, so that it celebrates the end of fasting.
Wow. Last year, I remember Nowruz was celebrated, and I think I was invited by Rocha to one of the places, but I couldn't make it, I think, because she invited me in many programs, but I think I only attended once. I couldn't make it to all the ones to attend because our lifestyle, work and everything, it just makes it so hard. Okay, I'm going to take a short break again. I hope it doesn't mess up the break. Taking as soon as I go to the break, something goes wrong. So I hope it doesn't mess up, and we'll be back shortly. I was so sorry that my whole system isn't for some reason. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about the Ayyam-I-Ha and what is the significance of Ayyam-I-Ha and how it's been done, how it's been celebrated. So I've got some more questions that have been asked by the audience. If right, sorry about this. This is just I don't know why I keep freezing the laptop. I've got a question for if Caleb wants to answer this. Which religion can be the first? Oh, we've done that. Sorry. Next one. Dear Mr. Guest, please say about his lost city, Egypt. Does anybody know? No. Sorry, we
No.
don't. Laxor. Okay. Please, audience, try to keep the question related, Bahai related. Otherwise, we will not need to waste our time just giving this kind of information. We'd rather be happy to give your answer to the questions that is Bahai related. So thank you very much for staying with us. In Bahai, during this pandemic, how are you going to celebrate your um, I am Mihai? Goes to Sarah.
Okay, so as I said, usually we would like to have big gatherings where we invite all our friends and family. But sadly, since we can't do that this year, a lot of celebrations will probably be happening on Zoom. So we can do similar things. So we can still share prayers, share some music, and socialize and that kind of thing. But also, as I said, Ayyam-I-Ha is a time for serving the community and giving to those who are in need. So Tower Hamlets Bahai community this year are donating to the Whitechapel Mission and the Bow Food Bank. And the children as well are doing a lot this year. So they have got something called the Generosity Festival. And usually they would have different tables and stalls where the children would do different activities. So, for example, storytelling or coming up with planning acts of service to go to the neighborhood and bake for people or prepare meals for those in need, that kind of thing. So I think this year what's happening is the children are going to receive small activity packs, which will have different things for them to do together. And they can share their experiences with each other on Zoom and still have those friendships as well.
Really nice. I mean, now the technical side, digital, is made connected. Although we live distant, but still we are connected. Like today, we're doing show from different part of the UK. I would say. I was in Edinburgh, myself in Newham, yourself, Sarah. I don't know where you're at home, I guess. So we are doing the show from home, which is good. We get connected so easily, and that's a celebrating. At least they won't miss out on anything. Like another question, either Sarah or Caleb can answer it. How have Baha'is around the world dealing with the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's been kind of a hard thing on one hand because we've mostly been trapped in our own communities because you're not really supposed to travel during the pandemic. But I can talk a little bit about something that we did in Tower Hamlets, and then
Sure.
I have I put together like some news stuff a little bit about what's going on with Baha'is around the world. So one of the things that our family did that was something that the Tower Hamlets Baha'i community was kind of coming up with, especially like around a year ago when the pandemic was first starting, is we created these little pieces of paper saying, basically, hi, I'm your neighbor, my name. We live at this address, so like basically the same street as our neighbors. And, if you need anything at all, if we can help you with groceries or deliver medicine or anything that you might need, just let us know and we're happy to do that. So, we put those indoors all around our neighborhood, and, you never know who's going to call back. And then we had a couple of our neighbors call us, and one of them was just saying, this is really nice. The other people said, yeah, we'd love some help. They were kind of elderly and retired, and they needed help getting their groceries. So me, my wife, and my now 2-year-old, so he was a little bit, I guess he was a little over 1 back then. We would go to Asda every day, and we brought like kind of a big trolley, like a wagon kind of thing to pull behind us, and we would get all their groceries and we bring them to them. We would do that for months. So that was definitely something that happened around Ayyam-I-Ha that came out of that we did personally. As far as like around the world, what stuff I've heard about. So around New York, there's, basically there are a lot of school closures. I'm pretty sure New York closed school early and they haven't really opened back up. And so there have been Baha'is who have been trying to produce content for education in the middle of not having school. Apparently in Luxembourg, there are moral education classes, like I guess like children's classes and junior youth classes that have made cards to send to healthcare workers. And let's see, also for kind of like an elderly home as well. In Slovenia, they were doing food delivery to restaurants to deliver, like they were getting it from restaurants to deliver to homes for people who needed food. Let's see. So Canada, they were having English speakers like connect with each other, English learners connect with each other. I guess people who had just recently moved to Canada to have some kind of solidarity and be able to kind of talk through all the crazy stuff that's happening. Tunisia, Baha'is were joining with other religious groups to basically call for both science and religion to work together to have an effective response to the crisis. And, can kind of go on. There are things like this. And this is pretty typical of what Baha'is try to do whenever something bad happens in the world, whether it's this pandemic, which has made things really interesting because it's harder to help people in person in the same way. But this is what springs from the soil of the faith, this idea that if humanity's one, then we should treat each other like we would treat ourselves.
Like as a Muslim, we say Assalamu alaikum to each other. Is there any word or any way that you guys greet as a Baha'i? How do you greet one else?
We have a greeting which is Allahu Akbar, which means God is glorious. So it's a similar concept. So just a way of greeting people, and it's internationally recognized amongst the Baha'i community as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I just saw somebody Assalamu alaikum Sapa calling me, saying salam to me. So I thought, I asked, is there any? Rachel wrote it down. Allahu Akbar. Okay. There is a Islam. In Islam, they say Allahu Akbar. Like when you go to kneel and pray, throughout our prayers, we say Allahu Akbar. So yeah, similar. Allahu Akbar. Okay. Samad got another question. Say about type of Ayyam-I-Ha prayer. So he about the prayer. How you do your prayer during Ayyam? Is there any prayer?
Yeah. So there's at least one Ayyam-I-Ha prayer, if I remember correctly. But it kind of the idea behind the faith, or not behind the faith, but Baha'u'llah and his son Abdul Baha revealed a lot of prayers. And so if you go to like Bahai.org and you go to the writing section, or you can buy books, Baha'i prayer books as well. They're kind of topical. And so, you can find some for like aid and assistance. You can find some for tests and difficulties that you might be going through, and a bunch of other things. And some of those things include the different holy days that we celebrate as Baha'is. And there is an Ayyam-I-Ha portion part of that. Now, the way that the prayer works in the Baha'i faith is perhaps a little different than the way that it works in Islam. So you have this idea of a daily prayer. And so you have 3 different kinds that you can choose from. So you can choose the short obligatory prayer, the medium, in which case you have to do one in the morning and noon and in the evening. or you can choose the long daily prayer, which is quite long. I'd say in practice, Baha'is mostly choose the short one, although that definitely depends on the person. So those are the prayers that are required of us. Past that, our prayer sort of like is something that we choose for the occasion. So we would read the prayers of Baha'u'llah or Abdu'l-Baha when we need it according to the topic. And also, which is quite common in the Christian tradition as well. So the Christians would recognize the kind of prayer we do. We also pray from the heart, quite occasionally as well. So, we can just talk directly to God in our own words. So for Ayyam-I-Ha, we have I think a prayer for that. And then we also have prayers for other holy days as well that we often say when we get together.
Another question that came to mind that, we have prayers, mosque and synagogue, and that as a Baha'i, do you have any significant place where you go for your prayers?
So at the moment, there are a few Baha'i places of worship around the world. But in general, we don't really have churches or synagogues or mosques locally much because, as you said earlier, the Baha'i faith is still quite small and still expanding. So usually we have prayer meetings or gatherings at people's houses. Some communities might have a local center as well. But in terms of large houses of worship, there's only a few around the world, so about one in each continent.
Okay. Someone comment, Rashidun Nabi saying, great program, thank you for the broadcast. Then Rocha, she wrote, Neela wrote, even this pandemic, many families are having their children to get involved with charity. Make us kind and definitely. Tried ringing, but no response. I wonder why, because lately the network is really playing up. So I don't know, maybe because of the reason I'm getting any calls. They have Joan Hayati. Do you have an imam or priest in the Baha'i faith? If Caleb or Sarah wants to answer this.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Thank you, Joanne. So the idea, like in previous religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, you needed someone to lead. Like in Islam, you often have imams that are leading others in prayer. In Christianity, you certainly have clergy through most branches of Christianity, although not all. And then Judaism, obviously, you have rabbis that kind of lead that function of a community. So the Baha'i faith is a bit different in that regard. We believe that because of the times in which we live, we have access to lots of information. Previously, that wasn't the case. So if you wanted to know something about God, you would go to your imam, you would go to your priest, you would go to your rabbi. And because they were able to read or they were educated, and not everybody could read or could be educated, then that's where you get your answers from. But now is not the case. If you want to know something, most people just go online, look at Wikipedia, go to YouTube, find some videos, and that's been the case for quite a while now. People have been able to find information for themselves. And something that the faith values very highly is this idea of an independent investigation of the truth. Like what Sarah was saying, when you could be born into a Baha'i family, but after you're 15, you're not necessarily considered a Baha'i unless you personally say that you want to be. And so it requires everybody to not just kind of blindly accept the faith they're born into. Everyone, no matter, even if they're born into a Baha'i family, needs to sit down and look through and investigate it and pray for themselves to see, if that's what they're supposed to do. In my case, I was born into a different religion than the one I am now. I did my own independent investigation, and this is where I wound up. But we do have administrative parts of the faith. So people that get together to administer, like where we have these houses of worship around the world. We have a lot of these charity things that we do to make sure the world's a better place. And there have to be people that get together to organize those things, among other things that they do as well. And so we have elections both at the local level and the national level and at the international level to these kind of like consultative bodies that are 9 people. We call them spiritual assemblies. And so they're not between us as individuals and God, but they do help administer the communities.
Okay, thank you. A question for Sarah. We have like they that when the child have to claim the akika with doing um, so or any that kind of thing, ritual you need to.
Sorry, Hafsa, I couldn't quite catch that question. I think it was breaking up a little bit.
Right. I'm trying to ask. They have a Christian in order for them to become proper Christian. They have listening in Muslim. Once the child is akika. Akika means string or they can afford to keep their name or
If I was understanding her correctly, because she was cutting out as well. Sorry, Hafsa. It was asking about, are there sort of kind of an initiation sort of thing that people go through? Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, I think I heard that as well. If there's a christening or something in the Bahai faith.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could talk about that. I don't know if she's live or we're live. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can just talk about it a bit. You want to start? Do we have those sorts of things in the Bahai faith?
So no, not really. We don't have a christening as such, but we at the age of maturity, or at any age after that, you can decide whether or not you want to be a Bahai. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, Caleb, all that means is accepting that there's one God and accepting the teachings of Baha'u'llah. And that sort of is your initiation, I guess. So yeah, there's not really anything like a christening or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding as well. I know some countries, they have different kind of administrative things, and they make kind of a ceremony out of it. So at least in America, and I don't know if it's the case everywhere else, but you sign a card saying that I believe in this, and this is what I want to do. I believe that God has revealed Himself through Baha'u'llah. So we kind of made a little ceremony out of that. I think that's quite common in America. I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't think it's everywhere, from my understanding. But again, that's when you're 15 at minimum, if not later, depending on the person. Yeah. So yeah, that's. I think that's what we would say is an initiation, but it's quite different. It's not for kids exactly. Yeah. So I think my message, I think we just got a message saying that we should keep talking, that her feed stopped. So, so what are you doing for Ayyam-I-Ha this year?
Well, today I thought I would try to teach my flatmates a bit about what Ayyam-I-Ha was. So I just got them a small present, and I just wrote a little card saying Happy Ayyam-I-Ha and kind of explained what it was, and then just a little quote on each one from Baha'u'llah. And then they both had uni today, but I didn't. So I just made them a little snack for them to have when they came home. And they were like, I wish you had Ayyam-I-Ha every day.
I bet.
What about you?
Well, no, actually, this is kind of crazy. So, my Christy, my wife, she's pregnant, and we knew that the due date was going to be Friday, but between you and me, and if we're on the internet, everyone else, like, it's going to happen tonight, like, definitely. And so that's a Ayyam-I-Ha present number 1 for our family.
Wow.
So we're very excited. Hopefully it waits around. I think it's not urgent, but it is going to happen. But past that, so we have a 2-year-old, and he has sort of like some different gifts each night of the Ayyam-I-Ha. So this is the first year we'll kind of remember, maybe like you kind of understand what's going on a little bit. And so, we're pretty excited about that. He's getting one of those bike things that like teaches you to stay on. It doesn't have pedals. You kind of like just kind of push it around. You can learn to balance on it. He's got like this big crazy piano thing that he can do. So I don't know, in some ways, like presents don't mean that much for adults, for the most part. Like, we don't necessarily care about like between Christy and I or my family, like we're not so interested in getting gifts. We're really bad about doing it. We just not doing it this year for baby reasons. But yeah, but it's really interesting to see it through the eyes of kids, I mean, it's like any kind of like big gift giving holiday in religions like Christmas or Eid, I think. So yeah, it's just going to be really cool for us this year because it'll be a bigger family and he can remember.
Yeah. Oh, that's really lovely. That's so nice. And that's very exciting as well about the baby on the way.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, your life changes when you have baby number one in ways that you can't understand until you do it. I guess we'll see what number two is like. I hear mixed things. Like either it's way easier than baby number one, or it's like it's not hard until you have baby number two. But we're looking forward to finding out.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I think Hafsa wrote a message saying, what kind of gifts do we share on Ayyam-I-Ha?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would you say to that?
Well, anything really. So I think the gift itself, or the material value of it doesn't really matter that much, but it's more about the spirit of giving or the spirit of generosity. So, and even if you can't afford a physical gift, because obviously a lot of people can't, just even offering a helping hand to someone, just being kind to someone, because you never know what people are going through. They might be having a really bad day. So that kind of thing as well. I think food as well is often a common theme, considering that the fast is about to start. What about you, Caleb?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like I said, as far as like gifts, like we don't necessarily care too much about ourselves. Although it is a good excuse to ask for something that you really want or to buy something for yourself that you really want. But like you said, like Ayyam-I-Ha is more about the giving than it is the receiving. I mean, so I think that like things we've done in communities where I've lived before, when we lived around New York, we did homeless breakfasts. We would go to like a church and we'd work with the people there in order to basically feed homeless people every week. And we made like that an Ayyam-I-Ha thing as well. Also, we looked for things that homeless people often need but don't normally get in donations. Stuff you wouldn't always think about. You would think about like socks. Homeless people often need socks and find it hard to get. Underwear, I guess that's pants in the UK, really difficult to find. And so that's always a value donation. And then also like toothbrushes and toothpaste and things like that. We often, those were always appreciated on our Ayyam-I-Ha charity drives. So yeah, those are the things that we did a lot there. Last year in Tower Hamlets, we had the Children's Generosity Festival, and we did a lot of basically charity work that's pretty similar to that. And then, like you said, we had these booths that were really cool. So different families made different booths. Some people like made a booth in order to have like a book giveaway. So they would collect books, and then a lot of the kids that came, who most weren't Baha'is, they were able to like have different children's books that had been collected from the wider community. And then me and Christy and Wally made a booth where it was like kind of a tree, it was like this kind of big light display, and like you had these ideas, like kind of like you had a little card that had a thing that could hang on the tree, and you were to write wishes for other people. And everybody in the community and people that came, I mean, certainly not everybody was Baha'i by any means, it got them to think about like taking actions and good wishes that they had for people other than themselves. So in some ways, like, yeah, Ayyam-I-Ha is the time of year where we give gifts and get gifts, but it's more just like a way of thinking about things that is focused on people outside of ourselves.
You guys, you've been wonderful guests. Sorry, I've been having difficulties. My last and then I had to read the whole thing again. So I believe Caleb's got something to celebrate about.
Oh yeah, it sounds like so maybe we were live, so that's good. Yeah, so we're gonna have a baby. It sounds like tonight. I think that's the verdict from the missus. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think it's gonna happen in the next 2 or 3 hours. Hopefully, but praise God. Sometime in the next 24 hours, we'll see how it goes. Wish us luck. Pray for us.
Yeah, good luck.
Our prayers. Your wife is in our. So did say to me that there is ability of your wife that today. So maybe because of that reason, you might not. So I thought, oh, she'll love to have him on board. But anyway, your wife and yourself, um, congratulations. I mean, baby.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Coming soon. So that's nice. I've talked about so many things. Bahai. They should not be singing, not be celebrated, should not to say it. It's misinterpreted. But within Bahai, are you allowed to just the way? Is there any specific thing that you need to wear or require anything?
So did you say, is there anything specific
Right.
clothing to wear?
Clothing to wear.
Okay.
Specific clothing. With the men, they wear it on the while they were thing. Women wear hijab and all that. Is there a specific for Bahai? They can wear anything.
Yeah, so in the Baha'i faith, there's no kind of dress or anything like that. It's just really, I guess, depending on where you live, you might dress accustomed to that. So, for example, if you lived in India, you might wear a sari. So there's not really any way of spotting a Baha'i, as it were, in that way. The only thing is that we are encouraged to dress modestly, and that's all part of living a chaste life. So that's the only thing really, but no dress or anything like that.
I've got some things here. Right, let those. Okay, so I've got some. I missed out quite a few comments. Okay, we read Neela and Khan. She wrote, "Good job, guys, for turning up here on Relax TV. Thanks so much, and stay blessed." Thank you for your comment. Then we have Samad, Bahai fasting period, Sunday, February 28th, Friday, March 19th, right? He's asking for reassurance.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think it starts after sunset on Sunday, 28th of Feb. But what that really means is from the morning of the 1st of March is when it will start. So from sunrise then.
Okay. So it's similar to Islam when we do our Ramadan, exactly the same way. Then we have Sapi, your voice is vibrating and not. I can feel that because sometimes when I'm listening to Caleb, Sarah, their voice is breaking as well. I cannot hear them properly sometimes. So I think the network issue here today. Rashid wrote, in Bangladesh, we will be celebrating Ayyam-I-Ha from tomorrow. Okay. Happy Ayyam-I-Ha. Is that how you say it? Ayyam-I-Ha? Happy Ayyam-I-Ha. Is that how you greet people? Okay. Samad wrote, what is the meaning of Sarah? Don't worry, Sarah. Roch already answered. Sarah means more. So, Roch is there to answer everything for us. Then Tanzila Lapon wrote, happy Ayyam-I-Ha to all. Then I have Rashid again commenting. Rashidun Nabi, congratulations, Caleb and family, blessed during this special time.
Thank you, Rashid.
Samad,
Appreciate it.
do you have guideline for whole life? That's from Samad. So, Caleb, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So, like any religion, the idea of the faith is to provide us guidance, not only for our personal lives, which it definitely does, but also for the life of society at large. And yeah, I mean, I think what Samad is asking is, is it a guideline for our personal life? And yeah, so I mean, for sure, like this idea that Sarah was talking earlier about with modesty, that isn't just clothing. That is sort of a guideline for our lives in general, right? I mean, you won't be finding Baha'is at nude beaches, hopefully. And like, in the idea that we should be, really kind, like to people when they're going through things. We should be generous. And those qualities apply to us, if we have means, and even if we don't. We should be brave. We should be courageous. We should be, understanding. These are the qualities that the faith, the writings of the faith, attempt to bring out in us. And so, in that way, we definitely have like these guidelines, the things that we know we should do, and that we should do them more, and the things that we should stay away from because they're going to kind of mess up our spiritual relationship with God.
So I'm sure, Mr. Samad, you got your answer. What Caleb was now we have so much. Mentioned to me, but I started some. So here you're
I think you may be breaking up again from our side.
Yeah, I didn't
Sorry.
quite hear. I couldn't hear that either.
You can. Rocha did one. To hear.
No, didn't quite catch.
No, sorry.
I think bad the network. I mean, I can hear you. Can not really hear.
It's just kind of in and out. Like we can hear bits, like 2-second snippets, and then we try to guess a little bit. Sorry.
Something happening. I can hear it's breaking up. You say something and then you beat network issue. On the stream. Write it down on the chat. Maybe you will what I'm trying.
Yeah, that should work. If you're saying like you can put questions in the chat, we can definitely do that.
Yep. Oh, can I see?
Going crazy now.
Sure. Okay.
If I could see.
Was that the request from Roche?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a few things I could sing. I can either just sing just like here in front of my computer with no music, or I can sing one where I can play some music through my phone and sing on top of it, but I'm not sure. Do you think that one would be good? Would it work?
Just you don't just with you don't need to sing.
Maybe just a cappella.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. Okay. So I will sing a prayer which goes like this: God grant that the light of unity may envelop the whole earth. So it's about, just as it says, unity. I wish that God will provide unity to the whole earth so that all of mankind can be united. And then remember the greeting. That will be at the end of the song as well. So just saying God is glorious. Okay. God grant that the light of unity may envelop the whole earth. Lord grant that the light of unity may envelop the whole earth, and that the seal, the kingdom God's, may be stamped upon the brow of all its peoples. And that the seal, the kingdom is God's, may be stamped upon the brow of all its peoples. Ayyam-I-Ha, Ya Bahai, Ya Bahai, Ya Bahai, Ya Bahai, God grant that the light of unity may envelop the whole earth. I hope you were able to hear that all right. Hear that?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, you were breaking a bit, but anyway, but someone did appreciate your beautiful voice.
Well, thank
Joanna
you.
Hayat.
Thank you.
Then thing, beautiful voice. Got another question. Other questions for you guys. How to be more present and to share during this pandemic? And another question: what do you do for community people in the danger situation? So similar kind of questions. So if Caleb wants to answer this.
What was okay? So I just remember the second question. If Sarah wants to answer the first one, there we go. How to be more present and to share. No, that's a great question, and it's one I think that everyone's dealing with. Whatever their religious background or otherwise in our societies all around the world, dealing with the pandemic. Yeah, I think we just do the best we can in our given situations. I mean, if it means talking to your neighbors from a distance, that's the thing you can do to try to see how they're doing and if they need anything. Yeah, you should do that. I know that there are WhatsApp groups sometimes for neighborhoods. Sometimes that's a great way to get together with people and find out what they need, and to sometimes just hearing people's. Sometimes life kind of sucks for a lot of people right now, and sometimes the best thing you can do is just to listen. And be a good hearing ear to people that are going through things, even if you can't do anything yourself. I think you just use the tools that are at our disposal and just do the best you can. When it comes to how do you help, I think it was a related question. How do you help people during these dangerous times? Just use the tools that God's given us one way or the other, and try to make people's lives better. I mean, it probably just varies depending on the situation.
Okay. I mean, half of the things I understood, half of the didn't understand because you keep breaking. So
Sorry.
there's something wrong with my settings. I don't know. I'm sure I have heard you loud and clear. The person who asked question, Nefsi Walid, you got your answer to, and so it's so much. Caleb mentioned as well. They explained supporting the unity but I hope you got your answer. Roche Road, Hafsa, are doing great. I don't know if I'm doing great because I'm struggling here because of the situation work. I'm quite stressed. It's like my voice is going. I'm to work on my voice to get my voice raised, but for some reason it's not happening. So anyway, to anything like that, give unity. Interest any of you? Do you do that during your celebration?
Do we do what during our celebrations? Sorry.
Any special in that? situation or anything like that for the students?
Maybe try typing it, Hafsa, if that's okay, because I couldn't quite hear it.
Now I'm going to communicate. How am I got my audio? Okay. 2, 5, 8, 3.
Do you want to recite a poem based on Ayyam-I-Ha? So I don't have a poem on Ayyam-I-Ha, but I do have a prayer by Baha'u'llah, which is about generosity and giving. So if you just give me 1 second, I'll just get that up.
Right. In the meantime, I think listeners can listen to. What I'm going to say is that please download our app wherever you live. You can, and also our page, subscribe our YouTube channel. When like our will get a notification whenever we see our programs, and you can participate. If program that you want us to share or discuss, then definitely you can let us know. And when you're ready.
Yeah, okay. Be generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. Be worthy of the trust of thy neighbor, and look upon him with a bright and friendly face. Be a treasure to the poor, an admonisher to the rich, an answerer of the cry of the needy, a preserver of the sanctity of thy pledge. Be fair in thy judgment, and guarded in thy speech. Be unjust to no man, and show all meekness to all men. Be as a lamp unto them that walk in darkness, a joy to the sorrowful, a sea for the thirsty, a haven for the distressed, an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Let integrity and uprightness distinguish all thine acts. Be a home for the stranger, a balm to the suffering, a tower of strength for the fugitive. Be eyes to the blind, and a guiding light unto the feet of the erring. Be an ornament to the countenance of truth, a crown to the brow of fidelity, a pillar of the temple of righteousness, a breath of life to the body of mankind, an ensign of the hosts of justice, a luminary above the horizon of virtue, a dew to the soil of the human heart, an ark on the ocean of knowledge, a sun in the heaven of bounty, a gem on the diadem of wisdom, a shining light in the firmament of thy generation, a fruit upon the tree of humility.
You've got another request for singing song from Joanne Hayati.
Sure. If everyone else would like that, I can do that.
We'd love to hear you singing.
I'm never going to say no. You've got a beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, I can sing another, just a short one, which is a prayer about how we should have love in our hearts for everyone. Kindle the fire of love and burn away all things. Then set thy foot into the land of the lovers. That's it. It's just a very short and sweet one.
Wow. Short. Short. So, Caleb, we're going to hear from you. We've talked about Ayyam-I-Ha. Anything else you want to add to it?
You definitely don't want to hear me sing. I can promise you that. My 2-year-old's not even that impressed by my abilities in that regard. No, I guess, yeah. I mean, I think when just talking about the faith in general, I mean, it's just this idea. And one of the most important ideas to me is the idea of independent investigation. You know, and that can be both when you're trying to find the truth in a religious sense, but also when you look out at the world right now and people are fighting over what facts are real and there's conspiracy theories, it's actually just taking the time to do your own research and to investigate the truth properly and everything. But always to do it with a spirit of love. And when you look around at the people who I think through good intentions often are trying to find the truth for themselves, it doesn't necessarily unite people. It can divide people. And I think that the missing thing that's good for the UK, for the US especially, God knows, is trying to do all those things with the spirit of love in your heart. And from a Baha'i perspective, I think that's the best advice I can give through the things that are going on in the world right now.
I mean, it's with any religion that every religion says you have to spread love and care for people. But as a human, we take different routes, different dealing with it. But every religion allows us and gives us the opportunity to become more, how shall I say this? That would be more charitable. We should be more supportive to other humankind or any kind. But sometimes we don't do that. So it's not just Baha'i, Islam, Christianity, any religion, they all talk about humanity. And humanity is the most important thing in our life, that we should support each other and never be judgmental and be understanding and be there for each other. Doesn't matter what religion they're from, what faith, what culture they're from, what ethnic background they're from. Still, we should support each other and be charitable. Sarah, you've got some other request for. You've got two other requests for. Another one, yeah.
Okay, cool. So this one is called Tiny Seed, and it's about how we are a creation of God, and how in the grand scheme of the whole universe, we might seem tiny, but we have a big job to do. Okay.
See more Sarah. They want more of Sarah now.
Okay. I am, oh my God, oh my God, but a tiny seed which thou hast sown in the soil of thy love, in the soil of thy love.
Is that it?
Okay, another short.
After you was going to say another two line. Question for you guys. From how to introduce the Baha'i in a religious family that has no knowledge on this subject? Question he asked. Shall I ask Caleb to answer this?
Yeah, sure. I guess that makes sense, given my background. Yeah, I can just say my own story, just briefly. So the way that I found out about it, through a book in the library, I did research. I found the Baha'is. Back then, it was through a newspaper. Like in where I'm from, they have all the religious groups in the county, and they all have like sort of their contact information. Again, this is 20 years ago, 21 years ago, 22 years ago. I'm going to date myself. And so, yeah, Baha'i at the top of the list, right before Baptist, in the directory. So I called them up and talked to them a little bit. I had some questions because, of course, and, they invited me to come to something called a fireside, where basically it was just sort of a question and answer type thing. So me and one of my buddies, we went. He could drive. I couldn't drive yet. I was still just 15. And yeah, I just had a lot of questions about it. And, over the course of half a year or so, after doing a lot more research, just like, I decided I did want to be a Baha'i. And, I said, I come from kind of a religious family. And so my parents, I'm 15, they're a little concerned, which makes sense because not everything in this world is what it's cracked up to be. You have to be very careful. And so, they came with me to Baha'i events. They met all the Baha'is, and they really thought that they were actually really special people. It's like, maybe my parents weren't necessarily on board with the beliefs of the Baha'i faith, like exactly, because, being Christians, they were very attached to Jesus, and it was hard for them to see that anything could come after that, whether it's Islam or whether it was the Baha'i faith. But they really respected the Baha'is that they met, and they thought they were good people. For me, it was like, I was trying to do like charity work and do things that were, following after virtues and loving humanity rather than, a lot of other stuff that teenagers are doing. So my parents were too unhappy about that. So I think that in the end, when you're talking to your family about that, about the Baha'i faith, and they don't necessarily have any knowledge of it, I think you just have to be transparent about it. I mean, you have to basically say, what the faith is, that when it comes to, like, your parents are religious, I'm guessing by your name, they're probably Muslim, or in my case, like, my parents are Christian. It's like, you have to, explain that the faith, it's a continuation of the same story. There's nothing in the faith that says that anything about Islam is false or anything about Christianity is false. It's just a continuation of that. And so, for me, I didn't feel like when I became a Baha'i that I became, less Christian, in the sense of that I was no longer following Jesus or, not believing the Bible. It was just that it made me like a fulfilled Christian in some sense. Like, it was a continuation of that story. So I think it's both. You have to, show rather than just tell. So if, you decide that this is the path that you want to take, or you're seriously investigating it, meet the people, make sure they're for real. And I mean, I hope that they are. All the Baha'is I've ever met certainly have been. And, have people meet each other, and then, pray about it, and have your parents pray about it, and then just take every step forward with truth and integrity. And then no matter what you do in life, you can't go wrong.
Do you want to add anything else to this?
I think Caleb said it all, really. But just what he said about, it's really important to be open to whoever you're trying to introduce the faith to. And I guess linking it to other religions as well, because at the end of the day, the fundamental message is the same. So it's probably easier to understand from that point of view. If they're already religious, or they already follow another religion, just to mention that it's the same message as all the other ones.
Thank you. I will take a short break, but my throat really plays up. So think on me. I don't know what to do, right? Usually we take 15 minutes break, but our break is right overdue. But anyway, in the meantime, that I cannot take a break because of my laptop situation. So shall we listen to a song again? You can listen a song.
Yeah, sure.
That's a kind of a break from it.
Okay, well, I can do a longer one this time.
Yeah, if you do a longer one. Nice.
Okay. So this is a healing prayer. So in the Baha'i faith, we have prayer in the Baha'i faith. If anyone is ever ill or upset or anything like that, so it's just a prayer to help with people, and especially during the pandemic as well, a lot of people are suffering. So this is for everyone out there. May I ask, is it possible for you to mute your mic, because I'm hearing myself back?
I'll mute mine just in case as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
is that okay?
That should be all right. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thou verily art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, the wise. Thou verily art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, the wise. Thy name is my healing, oh my God. In remembrance of thee.
Wow, nice. Most even in Islam, when we recite Quran, is so pure, and we every verses that we or every ayat would or every surah that we read has different meaning to it. One healing, one for the how to maintain the family, one each one of them represents something and giving out the messages for the people to read. And I'm sure as believe in by singing that kind of is really make you better. So Caleb, do you have anything else to add on to it?
I'm supposedly terrible at singing. I think I'm great at singing, but no one agrees. So you could take that.
Let's
But
hear
when
it.
it comes to
Let's
oh
take a
no,
challenge.
no.
Show the world that you can sing. So,
Oh my god.
are you brave?
All right.
Are you brave?
I am brave.
I'm sure you can.
I'm not necessarily stupid, but I am brave. All right. Let's do God. Okay, we'll do Blessed is the Spot because we sing that to our kid every night. Blessed is the spot and the house and the place and the city and the heart and the mountain and the refuge and the cave and the valley and the land and the sea and the island and the meadow where mention of God hath been made, and his praise glorify. Mm, mm, mm.
Wow, that's so sweet. And you sing that song to your son every day.
Yeah, usually every night before he goes to bed. It works for that. Maybe he's just like, I can't deal with the sound anymore. Better just to go unconscious. But, we try.
You put him to sleep. But it's nice. So sweet. It's really nice. Thank you for coming from Rashidun Nabi. Thanks, Relax Radio, Sara and Caleb. Lovely program. Thank you, Rashid, for staying with us. I hope you have liked the Facebook page and you have subscribed our YouTube channel. And also, you need to download our app. To listen to us every day, you need to download our app and you can listen to well, I believe you're in Bangladesh, listen to us from Bangladesh as well. Have Radio Bangla, Relax Radio English, and Relax Radio Music. So you can download all three of them, and you can listen to us. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Caleb singing. We only just 12 minutes left. So shall we wrap up a bit what you guys about I and if we can give some Bahai, then people who missed out or they can listen to what we have talked about so far. So if I can ask Sarah to brief and summarize we talked about all this time?
Yeah, sure. So we talked a bit about what the Baha'i faith is, and what we said is that it's a world religion. So it's an independent world religion, and it was founded in Iran in the 19th century. It now has followers all across the world, and it's actually the second most widespread religion in the world. And what we believe is that God sent down a series of divine messengers, and that each one provided teachings for the basis of advancement of civilization, and that each message is fundamentally the same, but just brought at a different time throughout humanity. So we also talked about Ayyam-I-Ha, which is what we're celebrating at the moment. So Ayyam-I-Ha is what's known as intercalary days, so the days that don't fit in the Baha'i calendar. And it's a time for generosity, service, helping others, friendship, those kinds of things. And this is to mark the period before our month of fasting starts. So that's starting on Monday, which is where we'll be fasting from sunrise to sunset every day for 19 days, no food or water. But as well as the physical fast, it's also a spiritual fast. So we're trying to improve ourselves. It's a time for self-reflection and helping others as well. And also thinking about those in need. So thinking about those who aren't fortunate enough to have what we have in terms of food and physical comforts as well. And we also mentioned some of the things that Tower Hamlets community are doing. So this year we're donating to the Whitechapel Mission and the Bow Food Bank, as well as other different service projects going on, both in Tower Hamlets and also around the world. And we also discussed some of the main principles of the Baha'i faith. So unity of mankind, equality of the races, and equality of men and women, as well as many others. That's a basic summary of what we went over today.
Thank you for giving us the outline of what we talked about today. We've got only 10 minutes left. So before we go, we would like our listen view for Caleb, the viewers. Hello, Caleb, can you hear me?
I didn't hear all of your question. So what would you, sorry, can you say it again, please?
We'll need to that soon. So we go away. If you to say your words to the viewers and listeners.
So like last message to viewers. So yeah, I think Sarah had a great summary of everything that we've talked about so far. There's no way I could have done a better summary than that. Yeah, so I think just talking about Ayyam-I-Ha and the idea of generosity, and just hoping that everyone can mirror forth the idea of generosity in their own life, and hopefully, hopefully that this time of year we can make better. Especially looking forward to the vaccines coming out, and hopefully life getting more normal around us again, but not lose the ideas of generosity that both Baha'is and everyone else in our society has done such an amazing job of demonstrating. Just holding on to that moving forward from here.
Thank you, Caleb. And
so I'm not sure that we heard that one either at the very end. We might have to do the chat again. Sorry.
Yeah, you can type it.
Sorry, Hafsa.
wasn't this funny.
Last speech. Oh, just the thing that I said earlier. Did it kind of fade out, or for Sara? Okay.
Oh, for me, okay. As in my closing words for the audience. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having us on the show. It's been really great to speak to you, Hafsa. Really good discussion, and thank you for everyone who's been listening and who's been sending in questions as well. So really good for sparking up discussion. I guess one thing maybe to wrap up that I wanted to emphasize was, I think somebody mentioned, somebody asked a question earlier from the audience, which was about how does the Baha'i faith promote the equality of the races? And we did briefly touch upon it, but I think it's a really, really important question and a thing that we should all be discussing at the moment, especially with everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter movements. So what Baha'is believe is that all races are equal. So we view everyone as equal, but that doesn't necessarily mean the same. So the importance of unity and diversity is a very strong point. So what that means is we have to accept that everyone has differences. So everyone does have different backgrounds from all walks of life and that kind of thing. And it's about accepting those and seeing the beauty in the differences, and seeing everyone as one in the eyes of God. And so just a very short quote that I'd like to end on is, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. So, and actually another one as well, if that's okay. The earth is one household and the nativity of all humanity. Therefore, the human race should ignore distinctions and boundaries which are artificial. The reality is that humanity is one. Therefore, false distinctions of race and nativity, which are factors and causes of warfare, must be abandoned. So I think what that's saying is we shouldn't really pay so much attention to where people are from and these artificial boundaries that we've created. So, for example, literal borders between countries, but that actually the earth should be viewed as one country and everyone is citizens of that country, and we should all live as one. And once we have unity, then we can finally have peace.
I would even like kind of add a little poetic version of that. This is from the Bahai writings, and it just made me think of this. It's make our souls dependent upon the verses of thy divine unity, our hearts cheered with the outpourings of thy grace, that we may unite even as the waves of one sea and become merged together as the rays of thine effulgent light, that our thoughts, our views, our feelings may become as one reality, manifesting the spirit of union throughout the world. And that's from Abdul Baha.
Wow, sounds so good. Thank you very much to both of you on Relax Radio today. And I don't know what guys are really closed, having all these difficulties with the digital version of the network, just giving us so much headache, but still you guys pull through. Thank you so much. And I really had a good time on my show. And in future, I'd love you guys back maybe once the week is over on our show and do the show from there. Previously, we have done it from the radio, from the studio, and it was also, yeah, next time come along and we will run the show for you, hopefully. Thank you so much for coming in, and wish you, Caleb, best for you, because you're becoming second time. You might pop the baby anytime soon. But congratulations.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for in the Relax Radio, and I hope you will be keeping us and this radio. And listeners, and thank you so much for joining us on the Relax Radio. And I have to thank Roche and for giving this opportunity to learn about Bahai. So, if you hadn't for her, I don't think I would know about Baha'i community that existed. A year and a half ago, she kind of mentioned to me, and I'm thinking, what is Baha'i? I never heard of that. But anyway, now it's clear, and we understood more about Baha'i community, and I hope it flourish and spread love and spread humanity and work with the humanity as much as we love to. So wish you all the best, and thank you for coming into this.
Good. Thank you so much for having us on, Hafsa.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Anyway, so viewers and listeners, that's all for today. And I'll come back with another topic another time. But every night, do watch us in Bengali. Most of the time, we do show Bengali, me and Amin Raja. So keep us tuned in your radio or on the Facebook pages. Take care. Bye-bye.